Blessing and prayer. I always get worried when I follow lawyers. But anyway, I do want to start with prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. You remain seated. Father in heaven, in the name of the Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. We ask you to send the Holy Spirit to send upon us. Lord, we thank you for our lives, the blessings in our lives. We thank you for the opportunity to come together tonight to celebrate life, but also protest preborn child killing. Lord, we know the gospel of life and the gospel of Christ are one and the same. So as we desire to save babies and keep women from deciding to kill their babies, to save and heal those who have been wounded by abortion, we are mindful, Lord, that you desire to all be saved and none be lost. Now we tonight, in some small way, can bring souls to salvation, build up your church on earth, and bring this scourge of abortion to an end in our city, state, country, and our culture. We ask this through the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Lady Guadalupe, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now, the real reason why I don't like following lawyers is because they hit on so many important points. Points that we could not discuss in hours, days, right, a weekend conference. Important things that are coming down the road, and I don't even think we can imagine what's coming down the road if we don't end preborn child killing, not by overturning Roe versus Wade, although we could overturn Roe versus Wade a number of ways, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. All right, the court could overturn Roe versus Wade and make no judgment as to when life begins, right? They could overturn Roe versus Wade, though, and give personhood from the moment of conception. And indeed, that's what we need. That's what we need. All right, preborn child killing is not going to come to a real end, because we always talk about changing the hearts and minds of the culture before abortion will really end. But the only way we're going to change hearts and minds in the culture is not the way we're doing it now. Because as Father Frank has pointed out for years, if you ask any 9-year-old what he thought about abortion or she thought about abortion and explained abortion to them, every 9-year-old would say that's horrible, that's crazy, right? Killing a baby in a mother's womb, I mean, that's crazy. And yet, what is the percentage of kids graduating high school that are pro-choice, pro-abortion? So we are losing the battle in the academia. And I believe that we need to not just overturn Roe versus Wade, but we need to somehow, some way, give personhood from the moment of conception to our unborn children, thus restoring their dignity, the dignity that we've robbed from them in this culture of death, restoring their dignity, and then, as we, through that, are outlawing abortion, we can teach subsequent generations that indeed our unborn children from the moment of conception are truly unique, precious, and unrepeatable, and have dignity because they are created from the moment of conception in the image and likeness of God. So that's what I believe, okay? But all the other topics, boy, I tell you, you hit on so many things. I got up here and I said, I don't know what I want to talk about tonight. So let me ask you this. Because I was going to tell my story, but so many said they heard me on the radio this afternoon, or this morning with Father Tom. How many people, raise your hand, are not aware of my personal post-abortion testimony? Raise your hand nice and high if you're not aware of it. Wow, this side of the room, why don't you guys get together and say, oh, we're going to sit on here, and this side, I heard their testimony, we're going to sit over there? Okay. So I'm going to give you a short story, all right? And then what I'd really like to do is talk about a few ways, because my understanding is the agenda was going to be something about, well, what can we do, what more can we do to end preborn child killing? Now, you're going to hear my verbiage, my rhetoric is very graphic. And of course, this dispute in the pro-life movement over abortion victim photography or abortion victim imagery. I'm on board with all of that. All of that. And in being on board with all of that, to me it's very important that we be graphic in all of our imagery. Not just showing the truth, but how we speak about the truth. And of course, you've heard it many times that abortion, the word, has no meaning in this culture anymore. Right? And I think that and I thought this out very, very long. I pray and ponder about all things, right? Mary ponders all things in her heart, and I believe that that's very, very important. That preborn child killing is the proper terminology. What's going on in this country is preborn child killing. And that's what's got to stop. And these are children from the moment of conception. We have to stop killing them. And of course, John Paul II, Evangelium Vitae, makes it very, very clear that this is murder. This is murder. And very often, as a matter of fact, more than once on EWTN, I have quoted that article in Evangelium Vitae where he says, now more than ever, we need to confront the truth. And in the next article he says, because what we are dealing with is murder. And if that type of graphic rhetoric, terminology is good enough for St. Pope John Paul II, it's good enough for me. We are murdering our preborn children. So I'm on board with all of that. So I want to tell you a short story, my post-abortion testimony. I want to talk a little bit about what more we can do to end preborn child killing. And then I just want to open it up to questions. Actually, my favorite format, I've done this before where I didn't give much of any talk and just open it up to questions, because my favorite format is really hearing what you're thinking, what you'd like to ask, what's going on nationally, and of course I like to answer those questions. I like to answer spontaneous questions. So I was going to talk about St. Faustina and the story of her experiencing the pangs of abortion, and then of course in her course where it came out that indeed, they were talking about the chastisement. Mary Ann actually mentioned it today. The city of Warsaw, which was one of the abortion capitals in Europe for years. But I think I'm going to save that for some other time. But actually, you can go to thedivinemercy.org, thedivinemercy.org, and you can hear from Father Sopaco, who was Faustina's confessor, and of course Father Mikolenko. We actually did a show very recently in Defending Life on him and this particular issue, and read about all of that yourself. How Faustina experienced the pangs of abortion, and then talked about or referenced the destruction of Warsaw and how Warsaw was saved from the chastisement through prayer, through the Divine Mercy Chaplain. But the point, or the reason why I bring this up is because what more timely season than to talk about the end of preborn child killing in our country. And so, my story. I call my story the story of Adam and Eve, the modern day story of Adam and Eve. And there are 4 scenarios that are abortion related. Of course, every abortion takes the life of a child, at least one child. Wounds a woman, wounds a man, whether they realize it or not. And then, of course, has a ripple effect. We at Priest for Life started the Shock Waves ministry to show the ripple effect of abortion, even in our culture, to us pro-lifers. Those of us who are active trying to end preborn child killing have been affected by abortion. We are really post-abortive. You cannot stand out in front of an abortion mill day in and day out and see women go in kill their children, come out crying, broken women, seeing men drag their women in, family members drag women in, and them coming out and not be affected by this. And Shockwaves deals with all those aspects, the ripple effect of preborn child killing in our country. So every abortion deals with at least one child dying, woman being wounded, a man being wounded in those shock waves. Well, there's 4 scenarios that deal with men. I've had men come to me and say, Father, I found out after the fact that my girlfriend was pregnant and she went, my Eve, I'll refer to the women as Eve. My Eve had an abortion. I didn't find out until after the abortion, and I'm devastated. I had no say in the matter. I didn't even know I'm devastated. I've heard this scenario many, many times because I do a lot of post-abortion healing with men. But as a percentage of the whole, the frequency of that is very, very small. I've had men come to me and say, Father, I found out my girlfriend was pregnant. I told her, let's have the baby. I'll stand by you and our baby. And she went and had the abortion anyway. I'm brokenhearted. I'm devastated. Heard that many times. But as a percentage of the whole, very small. And of course, I've stood in front of the abortion mill, and anyone who stood in front of the abortion mill for a long enough period of time knows, and I saw this just a few weeks ago, a man literally dragging his Eve in for an abortion. Could have been a father dragging his daughter in after getting her pregnant through incest. Could have been an older man bringing a woman in after statutory rape. Or it could just be a boyfriend overtly killing his own baby by dragging his Eve in for an abortion. And I've seen this many, many times over the years. But as a percentage of the whole, it's very small. The overwhelming majority of abortions deal with what scenario? What I call the Adam and Eve scenario, the true Adam and Eve scenario. And what happened in paradise? In paradise, the serpent showed up, and I always speculate, and I get in trouble sometimes by speculating. I'll talk about a couple of times I speculated on Catholic radio and got chastised because, oh, Father, those are personal revelations. Well, they're preaching techniques that we use to try to point home, right? But anyway, I've said that considering Revelation chapter 12 and the evil one attacking Our Lady of Guadalupe when she was pregnant, right, with the child who ruled the world with an iron rod, it wouldn't surprise me, indeed, if I found out when I saw Jesus face to face that the reason why the serpent showed up in the Garden of Paradise was because Eve was pregnant. But regardless, the serpent shows up and starts testing Eve. Starts confusing Eve, starts tempting Eve to eat the fruit, trying to convince her that she will not die if she eats the fruit. Now, in chapter 3 of Genesis, I think it's verse 7, it says, and Adam was there, her husband was there. So he didn't just show up on the scene later on to eat the fruit, he was there the entire time. Well, at no time, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, did Adam say during this exchange between the evil one and Eve, Eve, don't listen to him. Eve, let's get out of here. He didn't drag her out of there. He says nothing. He didn't step on the serpent's head. He didn't say, get behind me, Satan. He does nothing. Women being intuitive, and Eve, the mother of all women, was as intuitive. Said, well, if he wanted me to not eat the fruit, he'd just say, come on, let's get out of here. Don't eat the fruit. Don't listen to him. But since he's not telling me that, he must want me to eat the fruit. As a matter of fact, I think that Eve probably looked at Adam a couple of times during the exchange, and she got this. I think it might have even been worse. Adam, listening to the exchange and being tempted himself, is looking intently to see if indeed when Eve eats the fruit, whether she's going to die or not. And when she doesn't die, here's what I think happened. Adam said, give me some of that fruit. And Adam eats the fruit. Then what happens? Well, they realize they're naked. They're shamed. They go into hiding. God shows up. Adam, Adam, where are you? We're hiding. Why are you hiding? We were naked. Who told you we were naked? Oh, you ate of the fruit. Now at that point in time, what does Adam do? Adam, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, who could have avoided the near occasion of sin, the temptation, saved Eve from the whole thing, avoided the sin. What does Adam do at that point in time? Blames Eve. Blames Eve. It's worse than that. It's worse than that. There's three beings in paradise. The supreme being, the creator, God, and Adam and Eve. Adam, in my mind, completely responsible, could have avoided the sin. Here's Adam's exact words. The woman you sent me gave me the fruit to eat. So God, it's your fault, it's her fault, it's not my fault. Well, my brothers and sisters in Christ, this is what's happening in the overwhelming number of scenarios in which a baby dies and a woman gets wounded. The man does not stand up for Eve and then afterwards accepts no responsibility for it. And that is exactly what I did to my Eve. Now, at least I didn't do to my Eve what a lot of guys do to their Eve. Eve shows up and tells her Adam, I'm pregnant. And Adam says, how'd that happen? Right? Well, you weren't there. Right? But that's the first sign of an unwillingness to accept responsibility. Be held accountable, right? Hey, this is your problem. How did you let this happen? Well, I didn't do that. But I said, well, what are you going to do? Right? Meaning again, it's your problem. It's your problem. Not my problem. It's your problem. And I said, I'll support you in whatever decision you make, but it's your decision. It's your choice. And then, of course, I did what in most scenarios happens. But it's really not a good time for us to have a baby. It's really not a good time. You got expenses. Now, I was away from the church, and I should have given that caveat from the beginning. This was the mid-'70s. I didn't get ordained in 2005. Did not go into the seminary until 2000. Did not even have my reversion to the Catholic faith until 1980. So this was years even before we were living in sin, living together, away from the sacraments, away from the church. All right? So I subtly told Eve that what I prefer is to have the abortion. Indeed, that's what she did. She went and had the abortion, being intuitive. If you didn't want me to have the abortion, just say, look, I'll stand up for you, stand up for our baby. Somehow we'll work this out. We'll persevere through this, and everything will be all right. She went and had the abortion. Now, interestingly enough, and I didn't even go with her, and that's a whole other story about my total cowardice before, during, and after. But she started to act out. And I realized the acting out, and I was feeling some type of guilt inside. And I finally sat down and said, you're not right. She said, what we did was wrong. The abortion was wrong. And I said yes, and I did have a priest friend of the family, and we did go and see the priest and actually had our confessions heard. And actually went back to the sacraments for a short period of time, then fell into the old sinful ways, and then we parted amicably sometime later. And it was not until I was in the seminary, sidewalk counseling in front of the same abortion mill where she had the abortion, Metropolitan Medical Associates in Englewood, notorious late-term abortion mill that was notorious for years.